In this video, we're going to continue working on section 5.3. We're going to start by looking at example 4. And these are problems where we're going to factor, like we've been doing. But this is a little different because you notice that there are parentheses in the problem. So what I have here is I have x minus 7, and then I have another x minus 7. The set of parentheses has exactly the same thing in both places. And what that means is that the GCF here is actually x minus 7. This is the factor that they both have in common. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the GCF on the outside, just like before, and then I'm going to have a set of parentheses with the terms so that when I distribute x minus 7, I get back to what I started with. So the first term in the parentheses is going to be 2, then I'm going to have a plus sign. The second term in the parentheses is going to be 9a. So when I distribute x minus 7, if I just think of that as one whole piece, distribute the x minus 7 in parentheses to the 2, and then distribute it to the 9a, I get 2 times x minus 7 plus 9a times x minus 7, which is what I started with. So this is the answer for part A. Part B is pretty similar. We have a minus b in both terms, and so that's going to be my GCF. So a minus b in the front of parentheses, and then for this one I have a 5y for the first term. Now for the second term you don't see any number here in front of the parentheses, but you do see a minus sign, and so what you need to think about here is that this is an imaginary 1, and I need to put minus 1. If I don't put anything, then I just have 5y times a minus b, but I don't ever get this other a minus b term. So what I need is a minus 1 so that when I distribute, I get 5y times a minus b minus a minus b. So this is the answer for part B. So next you should do the problems in checkpoint problem number 4. Check your answers and then move on with the rest of the video when you're finished. Next we're going to do example 5, and here we're going to actually do some problems that require factoring by grouping. And so when you're doing factoring by grouping, what you should have is you should have 4 terms with no factors in common in all 4 terms. So I see that some of the terms have factors in common, like many of the terms have x's. I see a 5 and a 3 and a 15. There's some numbers in common there, but there's nothing in common across all 4 terms. So what you're going to do when you're factoring by grouping is you're going to split the original polynomial into 2 groups of 2. We do this with, again, problems that have 4 terms. So split into 2 groups of 2. We're going to look at the first 2 first and the second 2. And then what you're going to do after that is factor the GCF out of just the first pair. So looking at the first pair, I see that they have an x squared in common. So I can take that out, smallest power on the x's, no numbers in common. And then what that's going to leave me with is x minus 5. Now what I should be able to do is write x minus 5 over here, and I should be able to factor out a GCF and then have the set of parentheses be the same as the first set of parentheses. So in this case, looking at 3x minus 15, I can factor out a positive 3 and then have x minus 5 in parentheses. So we're going to factor the GCF out of each set of parentheses. Now I'm going to do the same thing that I did in example 4. So one of my sets of parentheses is going to be x minus 5, that's GCF, and then the other set of parentheses is going to be x squared plus 3. So that's the answer. And like usual, you can always check factoring problems by multiplying things out. So if I were to use FOIL on this, I could check my answer and make sure that I got back to what I originally started with. So what you should do next is checkpoint problem number 5. Do this in your notes and then move on with the rest of the video. The last example that we're going to do in this video is example 6. Pretty similar to example 5, it's just another problem. So this is another factoring by grouping. Split it into 2 groups. Factor the GCF out of the first group. I see 3 and 12. I can take out a 3. I know 12 is 3 times 4. And I can also take out an x because I have x to the first. 1 is the smallest exponent. So that's going to leave me with x plus 4. Now I'm going to write x plus 4 over here. And then think about, what do I multiply by x plus 4 to get back to what I originally started with? Well, I see that both of these have negative signs on both terms. What that means is that I want my number out here to be negative, because when I distribute it, I need for both of them to be negative. Then I also need to put a 2 so that I can get the 2 here and the 8 in the last term. And then I need to put a y because both terms have a y. So minus 2y on the outside, and then I can check this and say, okay, minus 2y times x, negative 2xy, minus 2y times 4 is negative 8y. So now all I have to do is write it in factored form. X plus 4 is going to be one factor, and then 3x minus 2y is going to be the other factor. The order that you type these parentheses in doesn't matter. So when you're doing the homework, if you were to type in 3x minus 2y first and then x plus 4, that's completely fine. So you can switch the order of the sets of parentheses, and that doesn't make a difference in the problem. So what you should do next is checkpoint problem number 6. Do this problem in your notes, check your answer, and then you can move on to the homework.